Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a world where the edge of the map is not empty, but alive, where the final line of ink does not mark safety, but uncertainty. A world where beyond the known road, beyond the familiar church bell, something waits, not merely wilderness, but meaning. By candlelight, in rooms thick with incense and silence, medieval readers turned the pages of books that spoke of creatures half known and half imagined. Beasts with twisted forms, impossible bodies, and unsettling habits. Men without heads. Animals that breathed fire. Hybrids that seemed to mock the natural order itself. They did not read these accounts as fantasy. They read them as truth, recorded, inherited, and explained. This was medieval Europe, a world shaped not by measurement but by belief. Religion was not confined to prayer, it structured reality itself. God's will explained disease, disaster, and deliverance. Scripture mapped the soul, while the physical world remained only partially charted. Most people never traveled beyond their village or town. Distance was not merely geographical, it was existential. Beyond the forests, beyond the deserts, beyond the seas, the world grew uncertain. And where certainty ended, stories began. The medieval mind inherited its knowledge from the ancients. The writings of Pliny the Elder, Aristotle, and Isidore of Seville were copied by hand, preserved in monasteries, and treated with reverence. Their words carried authority across centuries. If an ancient text described a monstrous race at the edge of the earth, that description did not demand proof. It demanded interpretation. Thus, classical inheritance became medieval reality. In this world, knowledge did not arrive through experiments or instruments. It traveled slowly, on the backs of traders, in the mouths of pilgrims, and in the whispered accounts of sailors who had seen things no one else could confirm. A man returned from distant lands, claiming he encountered people with the heads of dogs, who spoke in barks yet lived by strict codes of honor. Another swore the sea itself rose to reveal a creature shaped like a monk, hands folded in silent judgment. Others told of animals that lived in fire, or plants that bore living flesh. These stories were written down. They were illustrated. They were believed. Books known as bestiaries gathered these beings together, real animals and impossible ones sharing the same pages. Lions and ants stood beside dragons and basilisks. Each entry was careful, deliberate, and purposeful. The medieval reader did not ask whether a creature truly existed in flesh and bone. The question was simpler and far more important. What does it mean? Because in the medieval worldview, nothing was accidental. Every creature carried intention. Every abnormal form signaled a lesson. The world itself was a text written by God, and monsters were its most unsettling passages. What we now call myth once functioned as explanation. These beings gave shape to fear. They turned moral danger into physical form. Temptation appeared as something beautiful and deadly. Pride became a creature whose gaze could kill. Chaos coiled at the edge of the known world, guarding the borders between order and oblivion. Even humanity itself was tested through monstrosity. Distant peoples, unseen, unfamiliar, were sometimes described as monstrous not purely from cruelty, but from distance. What lay far away became unknowable. What was unknowable became symbolic. These figures reflected questions medieval society could not yet answer. What defines a human being? Where does civilization end? And what lies beyond? In this way, monsters were not mistakes of ignorance. They were instruments of understanding, a bridge between faith and fear, between knowledge inherited and knowledge imagined. They occupied the margins of manuscripts and maps, not because they were unimportant, but because margins were where uncertainty lived, where the world began to fray, where explanations became fragile. To look upon these creatures now is to glimpse a mind reaching outward, struggling to comprehend a universe both divinely ordered and terrifyingly vast. A world where the unknown was not empty space, but crowded with meaning. And soon we will step closer to those margins, into the pages where these beings were named, drawn, and described in careful, trembling ink, into the forms that haunted medieval imagination, not as entertainment, but as warning, lesson, and mirror. Because the monsters were never meant to leap from the page. They were meant to remain quietly at the edge of understanding, waiting. And as we turn the page, one by one, those shapes will begin to emerge. Hercovivus, the goat deer of thought. In the silent hours, when candlelight quivers against cold stone, you may feel the weight of something unseen, something that exists only at the border of reason and imagination. A creature that has never walked the forests of earth, yet has haunted the minds of thinkers for centuries. It is neither fully goat nor fully deer, yet its form lingers in shadowed manuscripts, waiting for the curious to glimpse it. Have you ever wondered what it would mean to see something that cannot exist? A being whose very form challenges reason, yet commands the curiosity of the mind. Somewhere between goat and deer, between reality and imagination, the Hercovivus waits. Its story begins in the minds of the ancients. Aristotle, wandering the sunlit halls of Greece, wrote of paradoxes that teased the boundaries of logic. Plato spoke in dialogues where creatures of impossible combinations illustrated philosophical riddles. The Hercovivus, half goat, half deer, was born in this space. Not a beast to hunt, not a monster to fear, but a puzzle, a thought made tangible. In classical texts, the Hercovivus is fleeting, almost whispered. Yet centuries later, it resurfaces in the meticulous hand-copied manuscripts of medieval Europe. Illuminated pages show a delicate, horned creature, its legs like those of a deer, its body bearing the sturdy coat of a goat. Artists render it with precision, as if its impossibility demands respect. Its presence is silent, yet profound, an anomaly preserved with reverence. Medieval scholars did not claim to have seen this creature roaming forests. It existed instead in the mind, a tool for reflection and debate. Monks, philosophers, and scribes debated its nature by candlelight. Was it a real animal? Could it live, breathe, walk? Or was it something else? A symbol of contradiction, a living question embedded in the natural world. The Hercovivus embodies what the medieval imagination often sought, the intersection of observation and philosophy, of the real and the conceptual. Its form is deliberate. It challenges the viewer to consider boundaries between species, between truth and invention, between what can be known and what can only be reasoned. There is a strange beauty in this creature. Its impossible limbs and gentle posture suggest harmony in contradiction. It asks of the reader a kind of quiet attentiveness, a willingness to dwell in ambiguity. In some manuscripts, it appears alongside real animals, sharing the same space as deer, goats, and more mundane beasts. It exists simultaneously in the world of nature and in the realm of ideas. Perhaps the Hercovivus is a reminder that not all monsters are meant to terrify. Some haunt us not with claws or fangs, but with questions. It whispers in the mind, how do we know what is real? What is impossible? And what is merely unseen? What lies between certainty and imagination? And yet, even in its stillness, it feels alive. Candlelight flickers across the manuscript page. Shadows play over its form. You sense it watching, not with malice, but with the quiet patience of thought itself. In the forests beyond the monastery walls, the real animals move, unaware. But on this page, preserved through centuries of ink and devotion, the Hercovivus waits, unchanging, impossible, and eternal. It exists as a bridge between worlds, a guide through the shadowy territory of the mind, where reason meets wonder. And now, as you turn the page in your imagination, you begin to realize that this creature is not merely a puzzle of philosophy. It is a mirror, reflecting the questions that have haunted thinkers for millennia. What do we see when we look at the impossible? How do we measure the unknown? And, most haunting of all, what other forms of thought, hidden and strange, linger just beyond the light of our understanding? The Herka service does not answer. It waits. And as the candle flickers one final time, you understand that some creatures exist not to be caught, but to be considered, quietly, in the shadowed corners of the mind. Manticore, the Persian beast of shadow and deception. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a creature that moves at the edge of thought. A body as large and powerful as a lion, sleek and golden, muscles rippling beneath its fur. Its face unnervingly human, eyes dark and knowing, as if it weighs your very soul. From its spine rises a tail tipped with venomous spines, capable of felling man or beast alike. Its roar is not loud, but a whisper that slides through the desert wind, haunting those who dare travel too far. This is the manticore, a predator that belongs neither wholly to the world of men nor to the beasts we know, yet it has haunted the margins of imagination for centuries. Its story begins far from Europe, in the arid lands of Persia, where storytellers whispered of a hunter unlike any other, a beast that could devour flesh and spirit with equal ease. Its legend travelled along trade routes, carried by merchants, travellers, and scholars. Through Greek and Roman texts, the manticore arrived in the libraries of the West, a shadow from a foreign land inscribed on parchment and illuminated by candlelight. By the time it reached medieval Europe, the creature had transformed. In monasteries, scribes copied its image with painstaking care. In bestiaries, it crouched in the corner of illustrated deserts, claws splayed, tail arched, eyes fixed on unseen prey. Some manuscripts show it leaping, teeth bared, a human-like gaze piercing the reader. These depictions were never mere decoration. They were warnings, reminders, and lessons encoded in myth. Travelers' tales added to its menace. Caravans vanished in deserts where manticores were said to roam. Villagers spoke of voices that mimicked human speech, luring men into the jaws of the beast. Whether fact, rumor, or imagination, each story lent weight to its legend, embedding the creature firmly in the medieval mind. It is not only a predator of flesh, but of perception. Its human face, so disturbingly familiar, becomes a mirror reflecting both curiosity and fear. The manticore embodies deception, the unknown disguised as the familiar, danger cloaked in beauty. Its venomous tail is a reminder that unseen threats lie beyond the limits of knowledge. To medieval readers, it was more than a beast. It was a moral allegory, a lesson in caution, a warning that appearances can betray, that foreign lands and strangers may conceal peril. It bridges the physical and the conceptual, existing as predator and parable, both real and impossible. And yet, its power does not come from claws or fangs. It lies in the mind, in the whispering certainty that some things cannot be tamed or understood. Candlelight flickers over manuscript pages, shadows playing across its form. You feel it watching, not with malice, but with the quiet patience of thought itself. The manticore waits, quietly, at the edge of knowledge, a sentinel of the unknown, a reminder that the world beyond familiar borders is complex, strange, and often dangerous. And as we journey further into the shadows of medieval imagination, we will encounter beings even more bewildering, darker, and more unsettling, each one a fragment of a past where fear and wonder dance together, inseparable. Will you turn the next page to meet the creatures that once prowled the minds of men, waiting to be seen once more? Mermaid. Mist rolls over the water like a living thing, curling and folding over the edges of a jagged shore. The waves murmur secrets, and somewhere beneath their restless surface, something moves with a rhythm that is not entirely of this world. A figure rises, half hidden by shadow and foam, her form catching the moonlight in strange, shimmering patterns. Her hair drifts like black kelp, eyes glinting with a pale, liquid fire. A tail, sleek and scaled, sweeps silently beneath her, propelling her with a sinuous elegance that seems almost impossible. She is neither fully human nor fully fish, yet her presence is undeniable, hypnotic, and quietly terrifying. The mermaid is older than memory, older than the maps that try to contain the oceans. From the rivers of Mesopotamia to the Isles of Greece, her likeness has been whispered along trade routes, carried in sailors' tales, and etched into clay and parchment. She is a creature of both beauty and danger, a reminder that the world beyond the shore has rules and powers unknown. Her song drifts on the wind, soft as a sigh but sharp as a dagger, calling the curious, the foolish, the brave, into the depths where they might never return. Medieval Europe met her with equal fascination and dread. Illuminated manuscripts show her perched on rocks at the edges of oceans, drawn in intricate detail, her form carefully balanced between terror and allure. Some carvings in stone depict her alongside ships tossed by storms, her hair whipping as if stirred by unseen hands, her gaze holding a silent accusation. Church walls sometimes bore her image, a warning etched in stone. Beauty may be dangerous, temptation may be deadly, and the unknown should be approached with caution. Sailors spoke of her in hushed tones, of glimpses beneath the waves, of voices that echoed the human tongue, yet carried riddles no mortal could answer. She could save a lost traveller, guiding him through fog and tide, or she could drag the unwary to the abyss, where silence reigns eternal. Her duality unsettled even those who had seen her only in dreams, half seduction, half predator, a being as elusive as the tides themselves. She embodies the tension between desire and fear, curiosity and caution, the known and the unfathomable. To encounter her is to be reminded of the fragility of certainty. The scales along her tail glint like scattered coins of forgotten treasure. The human shape of her torso reflects what we think we recognize. Her eyes, deep and dark, hint at truths that cannot be spoken aloud. She exists in that quiet space where beauty conceals danger, where the unknown tempts the mind, and where even the strongest heart may falter. Yet the mermaid is not merely a warning. She is a mirror. Her dual form reminds those who watch of the contradictions within themselves, the instinct that calls toward exploration, and the reason that urges restraint. The longing for the unknown and the terror of being consumed by it. In her presence, the world of men feels small, fragile, and incomplete, while the ocean, dark and endless, feels alive with consciousness, as though it watches in tandem with her. There are nights when the moon is thin and the fog is thick, when even the bravest fishermen dare not venture far from the shore. And there, some say she waits, still, silent, a shadow in the water, calling with a song that lingers long after it has ended. The mermaid does not rush. She does not chase. She simply is. A being whose existence challenges boundaries, whose beauty commands attention, and whose danger is as quiet as the tide itself. And perhaps that is her greatest power. She forces us to wonder, to question, to stand at the edge of what we know, and peer into the impossible. What lies beneath the waves? What secrets do the oceans keep, shrouded in fog and shadow? And how far will a mortal venture before curiosity becomes surrender? Ogre, the monstrous shadow of medieval forests. In the shadowed corners of ancient forests, where the mist clings to gnarled roots and the wind whispers through skeletal branches, a presence lingers, hulking, silent and eternal. Its breath is heavy, smelling of earth and decay, its eyes dull yet piercing, as though they have seen the depths of human folly and hunger alike. Muscles ripple beneath thick, coarse skin, and its hands are like clubs, capable of crushing both bone and spirit. It moves with a ponderous weight, yet there is cunning in its gaze, a terrible awareness that makes the night itself seem frail. This is the ogre. The ogre did not emerge fully formed from the imagination of scribes or artists. It was born in the oral tales of Europe, whispered by villagers around hearths, told to children to warn of danger, to explain the unknown, and to give shape to the fears that prowled the human mind. From the dark forests of France to the remote mountains of Italy, stories of enormous, grotesque men who devoured those who strayed too far travelled from village to village, growing darker with each telling. In these tales, the ogre is as physical as it is psychological. It is immense, a towering figure that dwarfs the men who might confront it, with jagged teeth, bristling hair, and a voice that shakes the walls of cottages. Its appetite is legendary, indiscriminate, and horrifying, a reflection of the fear of famine, of violence, of the unpredictable cruelty of nature itself. Yet it is not merely a beast, it is cunning, capable of deceit, lying in wait, luring the unwary into its grasp. The ogre's form is inseparable from the wilderness it inhabits. The dense, shadowed forest becomes an extension of its being, a place where human law falters, where familiar rules do not apply. To meet an ogre is to confront the untamed world, the raw and indifferent power of nature that civilization seeks to master, but cannot. It embodies social anxieties as much as natural ones, the fear of strangers, of outsiders, of the monstrous lurking just beyond the edge of the known. In many ways, the ogre is a mirror to humanity itself, a reflection of what society dreads in the world and in itself. Medieval storytellers did not preserve ogres solely as cautionary tales. They became central figures in the moral universe of folklore, carrying lessons about courage, cleverness, and virtue. Those who ventured into their forests were often punished for greed, disobedience, or curiosity. Those who survived learned to navigate danger, using wit as well as strength. The ogre's menace was therefore not only physical, it was symbolic, a measure of the human struggle against the wild, the unknown, and the morally perilous. Even as centuries passed, the ogre refused to fade. It persisted in fairy tales, carved into the imagination of Europe long after the last forest had been tamed. In these later stories, it became a more anthropomorphized threat, yet its essence remained, massive, ravenous, terrifying, and yet oddly human. It could be tricked, defeated, or outwitted, but it never disappeared entirely, a constant reminder of what lurks when humanity confronts fear without preparation or wisdom. And so the ogre endures, wandering the shadowed corridors of memory and myth. Imagine it now, just beyond the flickering candlelight of a lonely cabin, its breath stirring the fog, its eyes fixed on you, not with rage, but with patient inevitability. The forest is silent, except for the rustle of leaves under enormous feet, the snapping of twigs, the soft, dreadful sigh of a hunger that cannot be sated. You feel its presence long after it has vanished from sight, a lingering unease that refuses to leave. Perhaps this is why the ogre continues to haunt us, not because it exists in flesh and blood, but because it exists in thought. It is the fear of wilderness, of strangers, of the unknown within ourselves and the world. It is a reminder that some dangers cannot be reasoned away, some monsters cannot be confronted directly, and some shadows belong to neither night nor day, but to the mind that imagines them. Pard, the elusive spotted hunter of medieval lore. Mist curls over the plains like smoke from a long-forgotten fire. Shadows stretch across the grasslands, and in the half-light, a creature moves with a grace both alluring and unsettling. Its coat is dappled with spots that catch what little light remains, forming patterns that seem almost deliberate, as if the world itself marked it with secret codes. Eyes glint like polished amber, alert and cunning. Muscles ripple beneath sleek, sinewed fur, each movement precise, silent, and purposeful. This is the pard. Long before medieval scribes began cataloguing creatures in illuminated manuscripts, the pard roamed the imaginations of scholars and travelers alike. Classical naturalists wrote of it with fascination, a swift, powerful cat, untamed, dangerous, and mysterious. Some believed it mated with lions to create offspring unknown to ordinary zoology. Others whispered that its speed and ferocity made it a predator unlike any other, capable of stalking the plains unseen and striking with deadly efficiency. The pard was not simply an animal. It was an idea, a puzzle, a hint of the untamable wild beyond human understanding. Medieval bestiaries embraced the pard, though often through the lens of imagination rather than observation. Its spots became a symbol, its mating with lions a metaphor, and its swift, elusive movements a lesson for those who studied nature and morality alike. The creature was depicted crouching in the corners of illuminated pages, eyes fixed on some unseen prey, tail flicking with quiet menace. It became both a marvel of the natural world and a moral allegory, beauty coupled with danger, freedom tempered by caution. Travelers' tales enhanced the pard's mystique. Some spoke of its presence near rivers or hills, its form appearing and vanishing in a heartbeat, leaving only the whisper of leaves or the tremble of dust. It could strike from shadow or remain distant, watching silently, testing those who dared approach. Its duality, both real and fantastical, made it a staple of medieval thought. Scholars debated its nature, artists immortalized it in intricate illustrations, and storytellers carried its legend to distant villages, each retelling adding layers of fear, awe, and mystery. The pard also embodies a deeper tension. Its supposed union with the lion, a claim widely accepted in medieval lore, highlights humanity's fascination with the impossible. It speaks to the desire to understand the hidden rules of the natural world and the ease with which imagination could fill gaps in knowledge. In this way, the pard is more than a beast. It is a reflection of human curiosity, a mirror of both the desire to categorize and the inevitability of error. Its spots, its speed, its lethality, all become symbols, etched into manuscripts as lessons about the intersection of nature, knowledge, and morality. Imagine it now, slipping through the mist, invisible until the moonlight catches its sleek body. Every movement is measured, every glance a reminder of the untamed world beyond the hearth and village. You feel a shiver of understanding. The pard is not a monster to be captured, nor merely a curiosity to be observed. It is a presence that forces thought, a fleeting shadow that reminds you of the wild's dominance, of the rules that humans cannot bend or fully comprehend. Its legacy endures not just in manuscripts, but in the collective memory of humanity. Even as the wilds were charted, tamed, and studied, the pard remained a symbol of what cannot be fully known, a creature that embodies both the majesty and danger of life that escapes understanding. Its spots are more than markings. They are glyphs of mystery, signposts of caution, traces of a world that defies containment. Sea monk, the haunting creature of northern waters. Fog hangs over the northern seas like a shroud, curling around jagged cliffs and ghostly ships. The waves heave and sigh, carrying whispers from the depths, and somewhere in the dark water, a form rises. It is humanoid yet unnatural, cloaked in the likeness of a monk, with a rounded head as if tonsured, shoulders shrouded like in a habit, and arms folded or flailing in the rolling swells. Its presence is silent yet commanding, an impossible figure staring from the cold, restless sea. This is the sea monk. The first whispers of this creature come from the Scandinavian coasts of the 15th and 16th centuries, where sailors and fishermen swore to have glimpsed it, half submerged, moving with the rhythm of the tides. Some described it as having a humanoid torso fused to the tail of a fish. Others spoke of leathery skin, strange flippers, and a face both solemn and unsettling, like a man condemned to haunt the water forever. Reports were etched into letters, drawings, and chronicles, their careful observations hinting at awe, fear, and the inability to fully name what they had seen. In the fog of history, the sea monk took on a symbolic dimension. To devout eyes, it was not merely a curiosity of nature, but a moral figure, a cautionary reminder that the sea was God's domain and that human hubris should never presume mastery over it. The monk-like visage became a bridge between the sacred and the monstrous, a living parable for seafarers. The ocean was at once life-giving and punishing, serene and merciless, holy and terrifying. Yet the sea monk also puzzled naturalists and observers. Some argued it might be a seal or a misidentified marine creature, a shadow of reality draped in imagination, perhaps a hooded seal or a mass of driftwood, or even a giant fish glimpsed in choppy water could explain the sightings. But none of these explanations diminishes the power of the image. The silent monk rising from the depths, head bowed or eyes fixed on the horizon, an embodiment of the unknown, a spectral presence haunting the northern waves. Medieval and early modern artists attempted to capture it, often placing the sea monk in marginal illustrations alongside ships, storms, and other sea monsters. Candlelight would dance over these pages, shadows twisting across the features of a creature that is at once human and alien. Its very form embodies tension, the familiarity of a monk's figure colliding with the unnaturalness of the watery body. It is a reminder that monsters need not roar or bite. Some terrify simply by existing at the edge of understanding. Sailors' tales magnified its enigma. Some spoke of the sea monk rising from the waves during storms, pointing to disaster, guiding lost vessels, or sometimes vanishing as mysteriously as it appeared. Others claimed it could communicate in gestures or cries, though no human tongue could interpret them. It became a symbol of the sea's moral authority, beauty and terror intertwined, a being both to be respected and feared. The sea monk forces the imagination to stretch across the borders of reality and myth. It is a creature that cannot be confined to the natural world, nor dismissed as mere superstition. It exists in the liminal space of memory, observation, and belief, a reminder that human understanding has limits and that some presences are meant to be contemplated, not conquered. Even now, imagine the sea monk emerging in the half-light of dawn, head bowed under the weight of centuries, eyes fixed on the horizon, silent yet aware of all who sail these waters. The wind carries only the faintest echoes of a chant or sigh, the ocean rocking gently as if listening, and you feel it, an uneasy recognition of your own smallness, a brush against the unknowable, a whisper that the world is far stranger than it appears. It does not threaten directly, nor does it vanish in fear. It waits, patient, eternal, a sentinel of northern waters and of the human mind's fascination with the unknown. Perhaps it is warning, perhaps it is witness, perhaps it is a reminder that some mysteries are never meant to be solved, only witnessed, only respected. The sea monk drifts into the fog once more, leaving behind only the ripple of water, the faint echo of its form, and the lingering question, how much of the unknown waits just beyond sight, in the cold, restless depths, ready to haunt the imagination of anyone who dares to wander too far from. Salamander, the fire-born creature of medieval lore. In the flickering glow of a hearth, shadows dance across the walls, curling and twisting as though alive. From within the flames, a figure emerges, or so the ancients believed. A small, sinuous creature, its skin glistening like molten stone, its eyes bright with an inner light. It moves unharmed through fire, stepping where the heat is fiercest, leaving not a single mark upon the timber or stone. This is the salamander, the fire-born, a being of paradox and legend. Long before medieval scribes recorded its image, the salamander inhabited the minds of natural philosophers and storytellers alike. Pliny and other classical authors wrote of it as a creature that could endure flame, born of a mysterious connection between life and elemental force. To encounter a salamander, they claimed, was to witness nature's mastery over one of the most destructive elements known to humankind. It was a symbol of endurance, resilience, and the hidden powers that exist just beyond human perception. By the medieval period, the salamander had been transformed. Illuminated manuscripts depict it in a variety of forms, sometimes as a small lizard crawling unharmed through fire, sometimes with the wings of a bird or the limbs of a dog, a fantastical creature of both imagination and symbolism. Candlelight upon these pages casts dancing shadows across its tiny, scaled body, as if the creature itself flickers within the manuscript, alive despite the centuries. Scholars and alchemists alike imbued it with meaning, not merely a denizen of the hearth, but a being that embodied purification, transformation, and the interplay of life and elemental forces. Travelers and scribes claimed to witness salamanders in the embers of fires or within blazing hearths, their sudden appearances interpreted as omens or lessons. Some saw them as signs of divine protection, creatures sent to test the worthiness of humans, or as reminders that even the most destructive forces could be tempered by knowledge and care. Others feared them, associating the salamander with hidden danger, a being that lived at the intersection of the natural and the supernatural, challenging the mind to discern truth from illusion. In medieval alchemy, the salamander became more than a creature, it became a symbol of transformation. Fire, which could destroy, also purified, refined, and revealed hidden potential. The salamander's endurance amidst flame mirrored the spiritual trials of humanity, the endurance of the soul through tribulation, and the constant tension between chaos and control. Its presence in bestiaries reminded readers that the world is not merely as it appears, that unseen forces operate beneath the surface, and that mystery and knowledge are forever intertwined. Imagine it now, slinking through embers in a darkened hall, scales glinting with heat, unscathed by flame, a silent observer of the flickering world around it. Each step seems deliberate, purposeful, and yet impossible, a quiet defiance of the laws that bind mortal life. Its eyes, glowing softly, hold centuries of wisdom and a knowing patience. It does not flee or attack, it simply exists, a paradox given flesh, a creature whose existence challenges the mind and imagination. Artists and scribes captured the salamander in strange and haunting detail, small, winged or elongated, crawling through rings of fire, eyes bright and watchful. In some manuscripts, it appears almost playful, in others, ominous. Its form changes with the hands that illustrate it, but the essence remains. Fire is not destruction alone, and within the heart of danger lies endurance, resilience, and sometimes revelation. The salamander teaches that appearances deceive, that which seems impossible may exist, that the natural world holds secrets, waiting for those willing to look beyond the surface. And perhaps, in the quiet moments before the fire dies, when the smoke curls and the shadows lengthen, you might glimpse it, small, sinuous and unafraid, dancing through the embers, reminding you that some mysteries are eternal, some forces untamed, and some creatures forever beyond the grasp of. Certainty, it leaves no trace, yet its presence lingers in memory, in story, in the soft crackle of firelight. The salamander does not answer questions. It does not demand attention. It simply exists, a silent, elemental witness to the world, teaching patience, caution, and wonder to all who dare to look closely at the edge of flame. And as the embers fade, as shadows retreat to the corners of the room, the salamander disappears, leaving behind only the warmth of fire and the echo of something impossible, something untamed, and something eternally fascinating. Centaur, the half-human shadow of wild instincts. A mist settles over the forest like a living veil, thick and heavy, wrapping each tree in silence. Somewhere in that stillness, a movement catches the eye. Not a deer, not a man, but something between. Something that belongs neither fully to the world of men, nor to the untamed wild. A centaur steps lightly among the roots and shadows, each movement fluid, predatory, yet strangely deliberate. Its human torso is strong, lithe, coiled with thought and awareness, while below, 4 powerful legs ripple with a force that seems to shake the earth itself. The eyes gleam in the half-light, reflecting both cunning and instinct, and for a moment you feel the weight of its gaze upon your soul. Legends tell us it has always existed at the threshold of civilization and wilderness. In the myths of ancient Greece, centaurs were teachers and warriors, wise and reckless, guiding heroes or succumbing to their basest desires. The medieval imagination inherited these stories, transforming them into creatures of caution, warning, and fascination. Artists captured them on manuscript pages, carvings, and cathedral walls, each pose frozen yet alive, a tension between intellect and instinct carved into stone and ink. There is something unsettling about the centaur, something that whispers of the duality within all beings. Its body speaks of speed, power, and untamed nature, while its human face hints at thought, understanding, and morality. But the mind cannot fully tame the wild within. Even the calmest expression carries a suggestion of what lies beneath, a surge of desire, a flicker of violence, an impulse unbound by human law. To witness a centaur is to see the eternal struggle between order and chaos, reason and instinct, civilization and the forest's relentless freedom. It moves silently, effortlessly, yet every step is a statement of dominance and awareness. Perhaps it pauses to observe, or perhaps it is listening for trespassers. Some say it could teach those who approached with respect, imparting wisdom in ways humans could scarcely comprehend. Others tell of travelers lost in the woods, drawn by the creature's presence, only to be consumed by fear or fury. There is no certainty, only the lingering echo of power, a reminder that some beings belong to rules we cannot name or understand. Centaurs do not merely exist in memory, they linger in architecture and story, in the quiet spaces between words and images. Each cathedral carving, each marginal illustration preserves a tension that is as much philosophical as it is fantastical, that humanity contains within it both the noble and the wild, that every mind carries impulses it cannot fully control, and that the forest in all its shadowed glory holds dominion over those who wander unprepared. Now imagine the forest again, moonlight piercing the canopy, fog drifting along the moss-covered ground. The centaur steps from shadow to shadow, nostrils flaring in the night air. You sense it more than see it, the quiet, patient presence of something impossible, alive with centuries of legend. Its gaze does not threaten outright, but it commands attention, forces reflection. Every muscle, every glance, every subtle flick of the ears tells a story older than memory. The wild cannot be confined, the mind cannot fully master instinct, and some creatures walk eternally on the edge of both. The forest exhales. A branch snaps somewhere in the distance, and suddenly the centaur is gone, leaving only the memory of motion, of eyes, of a presence both terrifying and beautiful. It waits in imagination, in myth, in shadowed halls and illuminated manuscripts. And you are left with a question that the centuries cannot answer. How much of what we see as order is merely a fragile cage? And how long before the instinct within breaks free to remind us of the wild we can never fully contain? The monsters of the medieval imagination dwell not in forests or seas alone, but in the fragile spaces between knowledge and belief. Hercocervus, manticore, mermaid, monoceros, ogre, pard, sea monk, salamander, centaur, all linger as symbols, traces of a world understood through whispers, manuscripts, and travelers' tales. They were never simply creatures to be feared. They were reflections of the mind, mirrors of instinct, curiosity, and the limits of human understanding. Each being embodies more than form. The horned monoceros questions logic. The ogre embodies wildness untamed. The salamander defies flame and mortality. The centaur balances thought and instinct. In their shapes, colors, and behaviors, medieval people inscribed lessons, moral codes, and warnings. The unknown was made tangible, not merely to terrify, but to illuminate the boundaries of human comprehension, to give structure to chaos and meaning to what could not be seen. Through manuscripts, illustrations, and carvings, these creatures were preserved, etched into the cultural memory. A dragon carved atop a cathedral, a centaur illustrated in the margin of a book, a sea monk glimpsed on a northern shore. Each reminded observers that the unknown exerts its influence quietly, patiently, shaping thought, fear, and wonder. Knowledge was inseparable from imagination, and the monsters of the mind were as real, in their purpose, as the tangible world. They endure still, their shadows cast long into modern imagination. Dragons breathe in fantasy novels, mermaids haunt songs and legends, centaurs gallop through games and art. They live not in flesh, but in the ways humans confront the unknown, explore morality, and reconcile instinct with intellect. The medieval monsters, though products of imagination, remain timeless, echoing the tension between reason and fear, civilization and wildness, reality and myth. In the quiet moments, when the world seems still, their presence is felt as a subtle reminder. The unknown is never fully mastered, knowledge is always incomplete, and imagination is the key to perceiving the mysteries that survive beyond certainty. They are lessons, shadows, and witnesses, silent and eternal, bridging past and present, reason and wonder. Monsters, in the end, are not simply creatures, they are reflections of humanity itself. They endure because they illuminate what cannot be explained, because they linger where thought meets mystery, because they remind us that some truths are best approached with awe and contemplation. In every story, every legend, every shadowed manuscript, they continue to teach, to warn, and to stir the imagination, leaving us with the quiet, eternal question: what lies just beyond the edge of understanding, waiting for those who dare to see?